Portland, Oregon history. Portland is the largest city in Oregon and one of the most fascinating urban centers in the Pacific Northwest. Located where the Willamette and Columbia Rivers meet, the city has long been a crossroads of culture, trade, and migration. Today, Portland is the 28th most populous city in the United States, with more than 650,000 residents in the city itself and over 2.5 million people in the surrounding metropolitan area. Nearly half of Oregon's population lives in and around Portland, making it the heart of the state both economically and culturally. But the history of Portland, Oregon stretches back thousands of years before it became a modern city. During the last ice age, enormous glacial floods from Lake Missoula shaped the region, filling the Willamette Valley with hundreds of feet of water and creating the fertile landscape that would later support thriving communities. For centuries, the land was home to the Chinook people, especially the Multnomah and Clackamas bands. This region, known as the Portland Basin, was one of the most densely populated areas along the Pacific coast. The rivers provided abundant salmon runs, fertile soil for gathering and trade, and easy transportation routes. In 1805, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark documented the Chinook communities during their famous expedition, marking the first recorded European-American encounter with the people of this area. Long before it became known as Portland, the site was already a hub of life and exchange. The deep cultural roots and natural geography of this region set the stage for the city that would eventually grow here, linking ancient traditions with the history of modern Oregon. Establishment of Portland, Oregon. The story of Portland's establishment is one of chance, ambition, and remarkable growth. In the 1840s, large numbers of pioneer settlers began arriving in the Willamette Valley via the Oregon Trail, many of them first stopping in Oregon City. Soon, a new settlement took root just 10 miles from the mouth of the Willamette River, positioned between Oregon City and Fort Vancouver, the Hudson's Bay Company outpost. This settlement quickly earned the nickname Stumptown, or the Clearing, because the dense forests had to be cut down to make space for its development. In 1843, William Overton recognized the potential of the land but lacked the funds to secure a legal claim. He partnered with Asa Lovejoy of Boston, selling him half of the 640-acre site for just 25 cents. A year later, Overton sold his remaining share to Francis W. Pettygrove, a businessman from Portland, Maine. Lovejoy wanted to name the town after his own hometown of Boston, while Pettygrove preferred Portland. To settle the matter, the two men flipped a coin. Pettygrove won 2 out of 3 tosses, and thus the city was named Portland. The coin, famously known as the Portland penny, is preserved today at the Oregon Historical Society. By the time Portland was officially incorporated on February 8, 1851, it was already home to more than 800 people, a steam-powered sawmill, a log cabin hotel, and its first newspaper, the Weekly Oregonian. The young city grew quickly, though not without setbacks. In August 1873, a devastating fire destroyed 20 blocks of downtown on the west side of the Willamette River, causing over $1 million in damages. Despite this, Portland rebuilt and prospered. By 1879, its population had surged to 17,500, and by 1890, it had more than doubled to over 46,000 residents. The late 19th century also marked the beginning of Portland's identity as the City of Roses. In 1889, Georgiana Pittock, wife of newspaper publisher Henry Pittock, founded the Portland Rose Society. This tradition grew, and in June each year, the Portland Rose Festival celebrates the city's floral emblem. The Rose City nickname gained even more recognition during the 1905 Lewis and Clark Centennial Exposition, as Portland showcased itself to the world as a vibrant and growing hub in the Pacific Northwest. Portland's rise as a port city. Portland's location gave it an early advantage in the Pacific Northwest. With direct access to the Pacific Ocean through the Willamette and Columbia Rivers, as well as easy routes into the fertile Tualatin Valley via the Great Plank Road, today's U.S. Route 26, the city quickly grew into a vital hub for trade and transportation. Throughout much of the 19th century, Portland served as the region's most important port. However, by the 1890s, Seattle began to eclipse Portland after its deepwater harbor was connected to the rest of the country by rail, providing a safer inland route than the often treacherous Columbia River. During this period, Portland's economy diversified. The lumber industry boomed thanks to the abundance of Douglas fir, cedar, hemlock, and maple in the surrounding forests. The city also developed its own Japantown, a vibrant community that contributed to its growing cultural mix. Yet Portland was far from a polished city in its early decades. It quickly gained a reputation as a rough-and-tumble port town. Historians often described it as a settlement of transplanted New Englanders, but by the late 19th century, the city was marked more by grit than refinement. In 1889, the Oregonian even called it the most filthy city in the northern states, citing its poor sewer system and unsanitary conditions. Around the turn of the 20th century, Portland was considered one of the most dangerous port cities in the world, filled with saloons, gambling houses, brothels, and boarding houses that catered to miners and sailors flowing through the region. What had once been seen as a sober frontier community had transformed into a city notorious for vice and violence. 20th century growth and change. Despite its reputation, Portland grew rapidly in the early 20th century. Between 1900 and 1930, the population tripled, jumping from nearly 100,000 to more than 300,000 residents. The city became a major industrial and shipping center, which fueled its expansion. World War II brought dramatic and painful changes to Portland's history. The city became the site of one of the first assembly centers for Japanese Americans. Beginning in 1942, nearly 3,700 residents of Japanese descent from Portland, Northern Oregon, and Central Washington were forced into temporary facilities before being sent to internment camps farther inland. This was part of the larger mass incarceration of Japanese Americans across the West Coast. General John DeWitt, who oversaw the internment, infamously declared Portland to be the first Jap-free city on the West Coast. This dark chapter in Portland, Oregon history left lasting scars on the community. World War II and the shipbuilding boom. World War II transformed Portland, Oregon history in profound ways. The wartime shipbuilding boom drew thousands of new workers to the city, including a large influx of African American migrants. Many found employment in Henry J. Kaiser's shipyards, where Liberty and Victory ships were constructed to support the Allied war effort. While these new workers often faced discrimination in hiring and job assignments, their presence helped establish vibrant new Black communities and cultural institutions that shaped Portland's identity in the decades that followed. Among the most notable vessels built in Portland was the USS Liberty. Her keel was laid in February 1945 at the Oregon Shipbuilding Corporation. She would go on to become the most highly decorated U.S. Navy ship for a single action, cementing Portland's role in wartime shipbuilding history. The war years also brought rapid population growth. Portland swelled by more than 150,000 people as laborers were recruited to staff the shipyards and related industries. While the economic boom lifted the city, it also deepened social challenges and tensions, leaving legacies that continued to shape Portland in the post-war era. Crime, corruption, and culture. At the same time, Portland became infamous for its underworld connections. By the 1940s and 1950s, the city was known as a hub for organized crime, illegal gambling, and corrupt politics. In 1957, Life magazine ran an exposé on Portland's criminal underbelly, focusing on racketeer Jim Elkins. That investigation later inspired the film Portland Exposé, which dramatized the city's reputation as a dangerous, vice-ridden port town. Despite this darker side, Portland's economy thrived during and after the war. Kaiser's contracts for shipbuilding and escort carriers brought industrial growth and new prosperity. The tension between economic opportunity and social challenges defined much of Portland's mid-20th century history. The counterculture era. By the 1960s, Portland was changing once again. Inspired by San Francisco's countercultural wave, the city became a magnet for the hippie movement. The Crystal Ballroom emerged as a key hub for psychedelic music and culture, while food cooperatives and listener-supported radio stations reflected the era's experimental and communal spirit. Social activism flourished as well. Native American rights groups, environmental organizations, and early gay rights advocates all found a foothold in Portland during this period. By the 1970s, the city had developed a reputation as a progressive stronghold in the Pacific Northwest. However, Portland's economy remained closely tied to natural resources, especially timber. When the housing market slowed in 1979, demand for Oregon's timber industry plummeted, bringing economic hardship after a decade of steady growth. Portland since 1990. The 1990s marked a new chapter in Portland, Oregon history, as the city began transforming into a hub for technology and innovation. Intel, one of the world's leading tech companies, invested more than $10 billion in the region during the mid-1990s, helping establish Portland as part of the so-called Silicon Forest. This economic surge brought jobs and growth but also drove up housing costs. By the late 1990s, Portland was ranked as one of the least affordable housing markets in the nation. After 2000, Portland continued to expand, gaining more than 90,000 new residents between 2000 and 2014. The city's reputation for culture, creativity, and livability made it a magnet for young professionals. In fact, it was second only to Louisville, Kentucky, in attracting and retaining college-educated workers. Between 2001 and 2012, Portland's per capita GDP grew by an astonishing 50%, outpacing every other American city. Throughout its history, Portland has embraced a wide range of nicknames that reflect its character. Most famously, it is called the City of Roses, a title first used in 1888 and officially adopted in 2003. Locals also refer to it as PDX, after its airport code, Bridgetown in honor of its many bridges, Rip City in connection with basketball culture, and Stumptown, a nod to its early days as a cleared forest settlement. Other nicknames, like Portlandia and Little Beirut, capture the city's mix of humor, rebellion, and creativity. The 2020 protests. In 2020, Portland again became the focus of national attention during the protests following the murder of George Floyd. Beginning in late May, nightly demonstrations against police violence and racial injustice continued for nearly a year, making Portland one of the longest-running protest cities in the United States during this period. While most protests were peaceful, some nights saw looting, vandalism, and clashes with police, resulting in injuries and property damage. The situation intensified in July 2020, when federal officers were deployed to Portland to protect federal property. Their presence and tactics sparked widespread criticism from Oregon officials, lawsuits against law enforcement, and renewed calls for police accountability. Even on the one-year anniversary of Floyd's death in May 2021, demonstrations continued, showing how deeply the movement had become woven into Portland's civic identity. Closing thoughts. From its beginnings as a rough frontier settlement to its rise as a cultural and technological hub, Portland's history has been defined by transformation, resilience, and reinvention. Known as the City of Roses, Portland embodies both beauty and struggle, with a past that continues to shape its future. For more captivating explorations into stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to History Love, your go-to YouTube channel for uncovering the fascinating stories of the past.